Hello guys and welcome to my new video. And I just woke up, and what did I wake up to? This is some of the crazy changes that have been announced for season 4, specifically for healers, and basically a bunch of healers are just getting nerfs. We'll talk about all the changes. We'll talk about the Mistweaver nerfs, Resto, Druid nerfs, Restoration Shaman nerfs, Discipline nerfs, and basically why I think they're relatively lazy in terms of how they approach the changes to healing in season 4. But let's try to understand both sides. Why is healing getting nerfed in season 4? When you look at Mythic Plus content, you look at the shortage of healers, and a lot of people might be like, you don't need to nerf healers because a lot of people are not playing healers right now because it is such an anxiety-inducing role right now in terms of how many things you need to micromanage when you're doing Mythic Plus content. When you're doing raids, for example, in season 4, you're going to get previous raids back in terms of Aberrus, in terms of Vault, and those raids and bosses have been nerfed significantly since they first initial inception. So some of the raiders might be looking at this like, how many healers do we need to bring in raid? Right now in the current tier we can actually bring 3 healers for a lot of the fights, and that is going to cover most of the HPS requirements. So a lot of people in raiding environment might be a little bit scared about the power creep of healers in terms of how many healers we need to bring in raid, or how do we have the most fun in raid as a healer. So there are multiple different facets of the game that you need to kind of consider when you're looking at class tuning, because right now if you're looking at the difference of healing Mythic Plus dungeons versus healing raids, it's such a big difference that it almost begs the question, should there be kind of different tuning for both sides, or should Blizzard pay more attention when trying to focus on different aspects that make a healer strong in Mythic Plus or make a healer strong in raid, which I kind of already covered. But let's go and talk about the nerfs. So let's talk about the changes. Mistweaver Monk, all healing done reduced by 13%, and I think a lot of people were kind of expecting some sort of nerfs to Mistweaver Monk because Monk has been doing really well throughout the whole season 3. If you look at the HPS stats for Yggdrasil right now, this is mythic in terms of 75 percentile. You can go to 99, you have similar kind of numbers. Mistweaver Monk has been doing really well, and it was mandatory for a lot of the bosses out there. Now, I also do think that a lot of these numbers are also inflated by certain bosses like Farak, or certain bosses like Laradar, because a lot of these bosses require NPC or single target NPC healing, and honestly, Mistweaver Monk's capabilities when it comes to single target in terms of the modifiers that it has is absolutely wild. So Mistweaver Monk has been doing really well. It's been topping HPS meters. This 13% HPS nerf is definitely going to be felt. I still think you're going to be doing well as a Mistweaver Monk, but in order to top HPS meters in the next season 4, you're going to have to try a lot harder. I think a lot of other healers are relatively happy about this change because they kind of want their time in the sun as well. But I really want to know your opinion about this. I genuinely think that it is fine for certain healers. How do I say? Every single season there's going to be certain healers that are doing really well. And I think, in my personal opinion, I had no objections about Mistweaver Monk doing so well in season 3. Because season 3 is going to be remembered as a Mistweaver Monk season. Monk was the top healer in raid. It was borderline mandatory for early progression in mythic raiding. Certain bosses required a Mistweaver Monk. Mistweaver Monk in Mythic Plus is one of the best healers overall. I think season 3 is a Monk season, and I'm fine with that because when was the last time Monk was meta? I'm fine with these healers that haven't really been in the top for a really long time being in the top for a season. And I think Blizzard actually allowed for this to happen. And now Blizzard is looking at this and like, hey, in season 4, we're kind of gonna go back to the old times, or we're gonna try and keep people or keep healers in line. And I think this change is going to be felt. I think a lot of monks who re-rolled for a monk just to top HPS meters without even trying are going to step away from monk. But at the end of the day, I still think if you enjoy your Mistweaver Monk, if you played your monk for a long time, you're still going to have a good time. And monk is not a deleted spec. It is not gone. You're still going to be doing good numbers. You're just going to have to try a lot harder. Now let's go and talk about Restoration Druid, where all healing done is reduced by 5%. Now this is where it's kind of murky in terms of, are they balancing this based on raid performance? Are they balancing this based on Mythic Plus? Because if you look at Mythic Plus in terms of Restoration Druid, you might be like, okay, they're doing pretty well in Mythic Plus specifically. And you can look at websites like Mythic Stats right here, which is purely data driven. It uses real play information, and you can look at the performance or spec diversity in some of the high Mythic Plus keys, and you can see Restoration Druid is very popular, and it's arguably one of the best healers when it comes to high-end Mythic Plus content. And when you look at Blizzard nerfing Resto Druids, you might be like, okay, It kind of makes sense when it comes to Mythic Plus content. I would have rather have seen other healers getting buffs instead of these healers getting nerfs, but okay, I can kind of see where they're coming from. But then you go into raiding, and again, you're looking at the HPS of Resto Druid, and a lot of people are going to be, yeah, Resto Druid is absolutely fine, the HPS is okay. The difference in terms of what Resto Druid brings in Mythic Plus content. In Mythic Plus content, it is far harder to get that Mark of the Wild. Again, Mark of the Wild is one of the best raid buffs you can get. So you kind of really want to have Mark of the Wild. Getting Mark of the Wild in Mythic Plus is a lot harder. Getting a Battle Res is a lot harder. In raids, what does Resto Druid really bring? What is even Resto Druid's niche? Because again, a lot of things have changed in terms of Resto Druid raid healing. I don't think there's a specific reason to even bring Resto Druid in raids, even with these HPS numbers right now. And the fact that Resto Druid is getting nerfed by 5%, which is going to trickle down in raids, is borderline laughable. I'm just going to kind of back up my point that if you're playing Resto Druid throughout Dragonflight, throughout Season 3, in Season 4, you're basically playing Resto Druid because you want to push Mythic Plus content and you're doing raiding in order to get gear so you can push Mythic Plus content because Resto Druid is doing so well in Mythic Plus. And ironically, the 5% nerf that is happening to Resto Druid, specifically in Mythic Plus content, is really not bad at all, because your biggest competition in Season 4, the meta, before these nerfs, was looking to be like a Mistweaver Monk. Again, really strong. It's still looking to be strong in Season 4. And Restoration Druid. Now, your biggest competition in terms of Mistweaver Monk is receiving a 13% HPS nerf, and you're receiving a 5% HPS nerf. So you're arguably climbing that ladder. So if you're someone who's playing Resto Druid specifically for Mythic Plus content, the sky is not falling. The sky is not falling at all. It's actually not bad at all. But on the flip side, if you're Resto Druid who purely raids, you probably have been relatively unhappy with Resto Druid for a little while. Now let's talk about my boy Restoration Shaman, and this one is again another head scratcher in terms of the nerf. All healing done is reduced by 5% for Restoration Shamans. Now, a lot of people are really upset about this. There are a few people out there who are like, we're not going to feel this 5% nerf to Restoration Shaman because in Season 4 you're getting Season 1 tier set, and Season 1 tier set is quite strong. Specifically, the 2 set bonus is really strong. And I kind of agree with this sentiment to some extent, but I also feel that if Blizzard didn't nerf Resto Shamans at all and left them the way that it is, no one would have complained. I don't have raid information in terms of what Resto Shamans are going to feel like in Season 4 because there was no raid testing to really get into or try it out or see how it feels like. So I don't know what Resto Shaman HPS numbers are going to look like with Season 1 tier set. But I have to double down on the fact that no one would have complained if Shaman received no changes whatsoever, because Shaman can't do high Mythic Plus keys. He can't do well in raids and things like that. There are quite a few healers who are doing really high keys as Restoration Shaman. They're kind of showcasing that, hey, you can have a good time as Shaman. And Shaman did receive a mini rework in Dragonflight in terms of getting Tidebringer, and Shaman was meta for, I think it was a whopping 1 month or 1.5 months or something like that. It was relatively short. No one would have really complained if Resto Shaman didn't receive any changes and maybe it was allowed to climb a little bit higher. And that is my sentiment in terms of allowing certain other healers kind of climb the ladder. Let me know how you feel about this. I don't think Shaman is dead in any shape or form. I think if you enjoy Restoration Shaman, you're going to have a good time in Season 4. I think, again, the Season 1 tier set, specifically the 2 set bonus, is very nice. I just felt that this 5% healing nerf was not really necessary for Shaman specifically. And now let's talk about the last set of changes that is going to be Discipline Priest. Developers note, as part of our goal for balancing healers in raid, and this is why a lot of people are kind of a little bit confused. A lot of people looking at this and they're like, healers are being balanced based on raid, but like, why would you ever nerf Restoration Druid in raid, ever? This has to be something to do with Mythic Plus content. And so, but for Discipline Priest, as part of our goal for balancing healers in raid, we would like to reduce the raid healing output for Discipline Priest without affecting them in other content. So Atonement transfers 35% of the damage to healing was 40%. So this is the initial nerf, and then there's a buff. Atonement healing increased by 70% outside of raids, used to be 50, and then Atonement healing increased by 35% in PvP, used to be 15%. So this is going to be a nerf in raids, and in Mythic Plus, this is honestly negligible changes whatsoever. So if you're someone who's doing Mythic Plus as Discipline Priest, this is going to be a no change almost, and you're actually going to be relatively happy. So let's go and talk about some of the meta implications that these changes are going to have. I know I glossed over Discipline Priest a little bit, but we'll talk about it in raid and Mythic Plus sections of this video. So right now in raids, Mistweaver Monk is getting a 13% nerf. It's definitely going to be felt. If you want the top HPS meters as a monk, you're definitely going to try a lot harder. And the Flavor of the Month rerollers who played Mistweaver Monk, or and actually anyone who was forced to play Mistweaver Monk for this raid because of Firak and things like that, they might step away from Mistweaver Monk, or this is the time to step away, because if you don't enjoy a spec, there's no reason to play a spec that you don't like, or you might have been forced into. Discipline Priest is going to get nerfs in raids. It's not getting anything or nothing really sizable in Mythic Plus content. Restoration Druid is getting a nerf in raid because it's so... I just can't keep a straight face. Restoration Druid is getting a nerf in raid because it's so overpowered and so fun to play. If you don't understand this, this is pure sarcasm. Resto Shaman is getting a nerf. So who are the winners here? The winners are these specs right here. So first of all, Preservation Evoker. I actually have to say Preservation Evoker might be one of the biggest winners here because it is climbing in Season 4. You're getting a legendary. Season 1 or modified Season 1 tier set bonus is so fun to play around in Mythic Plus content. I'm really thinking about maining Preservation Evoker in Season 4 because of multiple of those reasons. If Preservation Evoker would actually, again, we're kind of going back to that Mythic Plus auto-generate tier list. This is not showing the capabilities of Preservation Evoker. Preservation Evoker's healing, damage, and all those things are actually really quite decent. It's just the fact that no one is playing Preservation Evoker, and this is kind of showcasing spec diversity, and this is why Preservation Evoker is so low. The capabilities of Preservation Evoker are not really showcased here. In Season 4, you're getting a legendary. You're getting, again, modified Season 1 tier set, which honestly is really fun to play around in Mythic Plus content. I'm not sure how Preservation Evoker is going to feel like in raid, but Preservation is climbing. I think if you're someone who was on the fence of playing Preservation in Season 4, these changes are probably going to push you over that fence. The only thing I'm going to say is that I would easily place Preservation Evoker as an absolute S tier healer, at least in Mythic Plus content, if some of the range limitations would be removed. If they would actually remove some of those range limitations, Preservation Evoker would almost be perfect in my opinion. At the end of the day, if you're looking to push really high Mythic Plus content in Season 4, you still have to battle with the fact that as an Evoker, you have Augmentation and even Devastation as possible kind of competition out there, because you don't want to overlap utilities by inviting multiple of the same specs or same classes. So that's something to consider, but honestly, Evoker is going to be climbing. In terms of other healers, again, Holy Priest is getting no changes, and a lot of people might be like, hey, how are these healers climbing? These healers are getting nerfed in some shape or form, so therefore other healers who are getting untouched, they're technically getting buffs. So Holy Priest did not get touched at all right now, and Holy Priest has received a rework in Season 3. And honestly, when you go to Mythic Plus content, I would actually place, again, I'm not doing my tier list right now, but let me know if you like to see my prediction tier list for Season 4, but Holy Priest is actually very much in line with Discipline Priest up to a certain key level. And I'll talk about that later on, but right now, if you're doing Mythic Plus content as a Holy Priest, and if you're allowed to DPS as Holy Priest, your damage output is arguably one of the best out there in terms of healers. So Holy Priest actually has a really fun mini gameplay when it comes to dealing damage in Mythic Plus content, in terms of using Chastise, Holy Fire, in terms of using Chastise with Divine Word and things like that, and it's actually really fun. And you have to remember, Discipline Priest didn't really receive any changes when it comes to Mythic Plus content. So what you're seeing right now is that Mistweaver Monk is getting a 13% HPS nerf, which is going to be felt in all forms of content. But at the end of the day, Mistweaver Monk is still a very solid healer. And you have to, and I kind of forgot to mention, there is a lot of overhealing that Mistweaver Monk does. So you have to also consider that. Restoration Druid received a 5% nerf in Mythic Plus content. This is not bad at all, because your biggest competition received a sizably bigger nerf. Discipline Priest didn't get any changes. Again, he got nerfs in raid, but the nerf in Mythic Plus content is not really sizable at all. So that's actually a pretty good thing for Discipline Priest, and it's also a pretty good thing for Holy Priest. But you also have to consider that the meta in Season 4, at least the current meta, without any changes right now, I'm very surprised to not see any tank changes or DPS changes. So right now, if you're looking at Season 4 in terms of what is looking strong, Vengeance Demon Hunter, by far the best tank right now. That's not going to change unless they're going to nerf sigils or CC options or whatever. You're looking at Shadow Priest, and that's one of the reasons why Discipline Priest and Holy Priest might not be all that popular because Shadow Priest is most likely going to be a sure lock-in when you're doing that high Mythic Plus content. And that's something to consider if you're looking to poke or do really high keys as a Discipline Priest or Holy Priest. So outside of that, you're also looking at Destruction Warlock is looking really strong. You're looking at, again, Augmentation, even Devastation is looking pretty nice. Fire Mages and things like that are looking really strong. And that composition could really benefit from something like Mark of the Wild. So you could almost say that Resto Druid is looking to be like a pretty sure lock-in pick for that S tier spot when it comes to Mythic Plus content alone. When it comes to Resto Druid in raid situations, honestly, the only reason to do raid as Resto Druid is to get that gear that you can pump in Mythic Plus. You might be watching this video and you're like, hey Maskless, what about Holy Paladin? You haven't mentioned Holy Paladin at all. And there's a specific reason. I don't want to rant too much. I don't want this video to be all negative because, again, if you look at the changes and Blizzard's rationale, and this is right here, at the same time we're increasing the comparative power of Holy Paladin, Preservation, Evoker, and Holy Priest. So Holy Paladin didn't receive any changes. A lot of other healers received nerfs, so therefore Holy Paladin is buffed. But the problem is, Holy Paladin's, how do I say, HPS is not the only issue of Holy Paladin. If you're doing Mythic versus Holy Paladin, you kind of want your heals to feel stronger. But that's not the only issue. There is so many problems with Holy Paladin gameplay right now, and I was really looking forward to the fact that maybe Blizzard is going to address some of the issues with Holy Paladin in terms of spenders. Maybe they're going to, again, do some targeted buffs to make Holy Paladin feel more interesting to play. And this is coming from someone who has mained Holy Paladin in Season 3. I had to play Holy Paladin in race situations because Holy Paladin still provides a lot of utility, especially in progress. You still have damage reduction and you can still do good HPS if you play your Paladin well. I really did not enjoy the gameplay in Season 3 as Holy Paladin. It really put me off from playing Paladin. And I was really hoping that Blizzard is going to spend some time and look into some of the issues that Holy Paladin has. And there's numerous issues that I mentioned through all of my videos 20 times over. And nothing has been done in Season 4. Instead, Blizzard is just saying, hey, we're not nerfing you and therefore you're better. This is, I don't want to be too dramatic, but I have packed my Holy Paladin. I haven't played my Holy Paladin in Season 3 after the progression was over, and it's not going to emerge in Season 4. I'm not going to be playing my Holy Paladin. I'm just so over this. I don't think Blizzard, I think these changes alone give me an indication that nothing is going to be happening to Holy Paladin to address these gameplay issues, and I'm just going to have to wait for the war within. But I don't want this video to be too negative. If you enjoy Holy Paladin, you do you. I just genuinely feel that Holy Paladin or Blizzard has done Holy Paladin dirty in the last couple of seasons, and I was expecting a lot more. But guys, let me know how I feel about this video, and I'm specifically really interested in knowing which healer are you going to be maining in Season 4 and which healer is looking to be really interesting for you. And also, how do you think Blizzard should approach the balancing between Mythic Plus and raids? Because I think this is a prime example where nerfing classes across the board is not the right way to go, because not every spec of class has equal performance when it comes to Mythic Plus and raids. Guys, let me know and I'll see you in my next video.